If you're not concerned about EMP, you really should be, because it is a very real threat. Today we're going to talk to an expert about what EMP is, what it does, and ways that you can protect yourself and your family. Hey Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene.
And today we are excited to have Andrew Bucchin back with us from griddown.com. For those of you that remember our last interview with Andrew, it was awesome. He provided so much good information about EMP and about what happens, because it's one of those topics that's out there that's just so much confusion. There's so much noise out there, so much that's not known by most people. And so it's refreshing to have a take from somebody who's studied this, who understands it. And so welcome back. For those of our audience who don't know you, just give us a little background about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure thing. And thanks, Jonathan and Kylene, for having me on. I'm always excited to be here. I love the show. I watch it in my free time. So it's great. And so, hey, everybody, I'm Andrew Bucchin. I'm from griddown.com, and we specialize in energy independence with a focus on resilience, especially against electromagnetic pulses, which we call EMPs. I've spent years studying EMP threats and mitigation, and our Grid Down Redoubt systems are designed to keep your power safe when the grid can't. And I'm very excited to get into it today.
Well, thank you. And that's what drove us to put in the readout system for ourselves, because I've looked for years, and Mama here has been saying, come on, we got to do something. I can't find what I really need. I don't want to put in something that's not going to do the job that I need it to do. And so when this came along, it's like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. This resonated with me primarily because of the EMP protection. So talk to us just briefly about EMP and what it is, what it does, and why we need protection.
Yeah, sure thing. So an EMP is a sudden burst of electromagnetic energy that can come from a high altitude nuclear detonation, a massive solar flare like the Carrington event, or even a targeted EMP weapon. Now, an EMP is a silent killer for electronics. So the pulse travels at almost the speed of light. It overloads circuits, fries microchips, and potentially takes down the entire power grid. For preppers and really for anyone, it's a nightmare scenario because it could mean no power for months or even years.
So with an EMP, what kind of damage are we talking about if our system is unprotected?
Yeah. So massive damage. An EMP has three phases, which is the E1, E2, and E3. The E1 is the fastest pulse that will zap small electronics like phones, inverters, and many, many other things that have pretty much any microelectronics inside of them. The E2 mimics lightning, which is hitting wiring. And then the E3 is slower and kind of similar to solar storms, but much, much larger and can last for hours, frying transformers and grid infrastructure. Without protection, your solar setup, batteries, or even your fridge could be toast.
I think a lot of people don't really understand what it is, and some people don't want to understand what it is because it's just easier to kind of ignore that. But the threat is very real. It's been demonstrated for decades, and I personally think this is something we may have to deal with in the future. And so dealing with it now is a whole lot better than trying to deal with it on the back end.
So the system that we have has EMP shields on it, right?
Yes.
That keep our power safe. How does that work?
So the Grid Down Redoubt, the 54 kilowatt hour system, which you guys have, uses EMP Shield technology, which we've integrated into every unit, providing what we call a multi-layer EMP defense system. First, you've got DC, direct current EMP shields on your solar arrays, which has yours has a total of 24 kilowatts solar input for your system. And these begin clamping down on the E1 pulse in less than a nanosecond, diverting energy to the ground before it can affect your panels and your inverters. There's also an AC EMP shield on the readout itself, and another one for your home's electrical system, handling the E2 and the E3 phases and providing a total of 220,000 plus amps of protection for your system and your home.
And I'll be honest. I mean, we have a lot of people out there that are saying, this is just, baloney. This is not real. And I was in that camp at one point. I thought there's no way this can work. And then I talked to my friend who's an electrical engineer working in the mining industry. And he said, oh, yeah, we use this stuff all the time. Their intent was to protect from lightning because, they have all these big trucks. They have all their equipment is run electrically. And so he said, oh, yeah, this is stuff we use all the time. In my mind, and you can correct me, there's two aspects that it has to have. It has to be able to sense that rising voltage, and then it has to be able to divert it to ground. And that's what these systems are. That's what he was telling me. Okay, that's what this is. When it senses that sudden rise, it just pushes everything to ground. Correct me where I'm wrong.
No, that's correct. And so there's several aspects to the technology, but those are very important things. The first it has to be able to see the energy coming into the system. These are omnidirectional, so it's looking at energy coming from any direction, whether it's from the grid or directly into your home from the solar energy system from Grid Down. Wherever it sees that energy trying to come, it's able to protect it. It shunts, which means redirect the energy. And the trick to this is the ability to redirect the energy faster than the damage can occur, because an E1 is very, very fast. Yeah. And so that's exactly what this is doing. And then the third thing that's very important is the robustness of the device. Because even if it's really fast but not robust, it will still get destroyed. Because remember, this device also has to survive the EMP. And so it's able to sense it, shunt it, and handle that amount of energy to pull it all to ground before anything is destroyed.
And just to be clear, the batteries, the inverter, and the solar panels are all protected with this system.
Well, and all the other electronics, the charge controller, which is also part of those systems, they're all covered, right?
That's correct. You've got full spectrum protection. So the DC EMP shields that come with the system protect your solar input and the DC side of the Grid Down Redoubt system. The AC EMP shields on the readout guards the inverters and the other AC components in the system. And then you also have home EMP shield protection, which covers your wiring and your appliances, which is this full spectrum level of protection. Basically, the complete EMP shield protection is designed to stop the pulse before it can cascade through your setup.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the threat. What is the likelihood of having an EMP or an electromagnetic pulse, and how bad is the potential that it could really get?
Yeah, so these are the thing. I have there's three big risks, and I just want to highlight that these are low probability but very high risk. And so here's the three big risks. The first is a high altitude nuclear EMP, which we call HEMP, which could be detonated anywhere from 20 miles to up to 300 miles above the Earth. And this could potentially blanket the entire United States, wiping out our unprotected grids and electronics. The second threat is a solar flare that would be followed by a coronal mass ejection from the sun, sort of like what we did see in the 1859 Carrington event. A coronal mass ejection of this size would impact the entire Earth and potentially send the whole world back to before we had power, which would be not very good. NASA says that we have a 12% chance of this happening in the next decade. So there is a 12% probability or possibility that this could occur. And then the last threat is EMP weapons, which rogue states or terrorists could use locally. And I think it's very important to highlight that the Congressional EMP Commission estimates that a major high altitude nuclear EMP event could disable 90% or more of the power grid. And the recovery of the power grid could take a year or more. So it's going to take a very long time to fix this, and almost all of it would go down, potentially even more than that.
And I know there's a lot of efforts out there right now to secure the grid, to try and protect the grid, but unfortunately, it seems like they are not getting a lot of traction, even though that threat is real. It's for some reason, and I think a lot of it is utility companies don't want to pony up the money to help do this. But this is a serious issue that nobody seems to want to take on, and so it kind of falls onto us as people, as citizens, to do what we can do to protect ourselves. And obviously, that's not as good as having a grid-wide protection system, but I see that still being years away.
So, Andrew, has this system actually been tested in real life kind of scenarios? Do we know that it's going to work?
Extensively. EMP Shield has been extensively tested in both the laboratory and in the real world. EMP Shield's been through military-grade trials at labs like Keystone Compliance, testing up to 90,000 volts per meter. We've tested to all of the military standards for military standard 188, 125-1, 461 Golf, 464 Charlie, and RS 105, which are the standards that the military uses. And we also have real world evidence of the effectiveness of our EMP Shield devices for lightning strikes. To date, we've had over 200 homes get hit by lightning, and we currently protect over $5 billion in infrastructure, vehicles, and equipment, which is a lot and growing very rapidly for our company. EMP Shield is listed by the Department of Homeland Security in their EMP Resilience Report. And our EMP Shield warranty guarantees lightning protection and is backed by a $25,000 insurance policy.
Why prioritize EMP protection over just doing other things like, having batteries stored and, some backup things? Give us your perspective on that.
Power is a lifeline. Food and water are critical, but without electricity, your well pump stops, your freezer thaws, your radios go silent. An EMP doesn't just kill the grid, it kills unprotected power backups too. The Redoubt's EMP Shield protection means that your solar system and your power storage keeps working even after an EMP. You're not just waiting out a crisis. With the Grid Down Redoubt energy storage system, you're living through it with lights, with heat, with refrigerators and communications.
That is awesome. Now, how does this stack up against other EMP protection solutions such as a Faraday cage?
Faraday cages are great. They're great for small gear, radios, phones, but they're impractical for a whole energy storage system or a whole home. To protect those larger things, you'd have to enclose your entire energy storage system and solar array, then figure out the wiring without gaps. The EMP Shield is what we call active protection. It's always on, no assembly required, and EMP Shield scales to your home's size and needs or your energy storage system size and needs. With Grid Down, it comes included with each specific size and does also come with home protection. Plus, the EMP Shield is rated for 10 years. Versus a very large Faraday cage, which is expensive to be house sized. And it's something that you'd have to maintain and could be very costly.
So in my mind, the bottom line is that you kind of need both. There are some things that you will need a Faraday cage for, but having the EMP protection, the EMP Shield really is a game changer because it protects everything else.
So let me make sure I understand this right. So in our system, the EMP Shield that we have, we have lots of EMP Shields actually with our system, but the device has to be plugged in order for it to be protected.
That's correct. Yes. So with the EMP Shield, we can kind of talk about the home. With the home EMP Shield in your home's electrical, anything that's connected to your electrical system is then protected within that 10,000 square feet distance. It's the same with your energy storage system with the Grid Down Redoubt. That entire system is protected through the AC and DC devices that we discussed a little bit earlier. And like you said, Faraday bags are fantastic. They do work. And they're really more for small things like if you need to protect a phone, communications device, something that's not always plugged into the wall, you should absolutely be using a Faraday bag as well, which, by the way, Grid Down does plan to be offering here very soon.
So, Andrew, one of the things that really got me excited about the Redoubt system was the warranty. Describe that warranty for us.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the Grid Down Redoubt comes with a 25-year industry-leading warranty. When you look at other energy storage systems, the average is about 10 years. So our warranty in general is 2.5 times longer than other systems. It also has an incredible amount of safety certifications, which is why we're able to warranty for that long. And then there's also a few other standouts that really come that really come with the system. And the first is it's EMP protection. So we've obviously discussed that, but some things about that we didn't discuss is that the EMP Shield is self-healing after a surge, which means it instantly resets and is ready for another hit, which is a very incredible feature. We also have the omnidirectional protection, which is critically important. So like we mentioned before, every Grid Down Redoubt comes with the AC and DC protection sides for the system and the home protection so that no matter where the energy comes from, it's protected. And then also one of the things that really sets this apart is that the Grid Down Redoubt is not just robust, has this very incredible warranty and these amazing power capabilities. And by the way, the solar panels are also 20 plus year warranties on our website. so they fit. But the EMP protection inside of it is incredibly fast. It reacts in less than a nanosecond, which is faster than an EMP can propagate. And our system is also incredibly modular, which is something that people don't really talk a lot about. And when you're kind of thinking about energy storage systems, most people think about, you buy an inverter and then you buy some batteries and maybe some other components to put them all together, but then you got to figure out how to put them together. And then you've got to balance the batteries and you've got to connect to this crazy mainframe that then is checking and warrantying the system. It's complicated. With the Grid Down Redoubt, it is a plug and play system. And don't get me wrong, we do require an electrician. There is things that have to be done, but compared to other systems, it actually is much more simple. And the EMP shields are plug and play, which is really great as well.
I love our Grid Down Redoubt system just because of that, because we're off grid, right? We're off grid right now. We're tied to the grid so we can use it as backup, but it's amazing. We don't have to, John looks at the little monitor all day long.
Not all day long, but
look at the smile.
I love it. Every day I love to check in and just see what happened the day before and
see all that energy that we're producing.
And the fact that we're still tied to the grid means we also sell. We're also shipping excess power to them, not really selling, but getting credits. And so, it's kind of a win all the way around for me.
It is. And there really isn't much work on our side, right? Once it was installed and stuff, he monitors it, but it just does what it needs to do. And that's been really, I was worried it was going to be too technical, but I think it's super cool that way.
One of the things that I think is important to understand, because sometimes EMP is this big mystery, there's basically two ways that you are going to get hit by an EMP. One is by actual surge through electrical systems, and the other is actually induced as this propagates through the air. Can you, these systems cover both. Can you just touch on that just briefly?
Yes, absolutely. So just to be clear, to make sure I understand, you're talking about during an EMP, how the energy is inducing simultaneously. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, you've got energy being induced as well as, coming through wires through the electrical system, through the grid system. It's all covered, whether it's being induced or whether it's coming through the grid system. All of this is covered.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic question. I love to talk about this. And this is good for people that are listening. They may not understand this, but during an EMP, the energy comes from the atmosphere and induces into everything simultaneously. So comparatively, if you think about a lightning strike, normally the lightning hits the grid. It comes through the power grid and finds its way into your home, usually through the breaker box, which, by the way, EMP guarantees to protect that. But in an EMP, what's happening is these freed electrons come down and induce directly into your home's electrical wiring, which is a big antenna. It'll induce directly into your TV, directly into your fridge. It'll induce directly into your solar panels, which collect a huge amount of energy because they're designed to. This is where EMP Shield shines, and this is what makes EMP Shield different from a normal surge protector, is that the EMP Shield is looking in both directions. So looking at the home's breaker box, our EMP Shield is looking out into the grid, 250 linear feet, and inside the home, 250 linear feet, which is the equivalent of 10,000 square feet. And it's looking for this rise and fall in voltage. It's designed specifically to be doing this. And when that voltage rises, whether it's energy in the system from your microwave, which would not go to the certain level, or if it's coming from an EMP, which raises that voltage very high, very quickly, the EMP Shield sees that rise in voltage and it shunts, it drains that energy faster than the heat and the damage can occur in microelectronics and really anything that could have an impact from the heat generated from the energy. And it's doing this not just in the home's electrical system, which the Grid Down Redoubt comes with, it's also doing it with every EMP Shield. So what we're doing with the Grid Down Redoubt is providing what we call a coordinated protection approach. So you're going to have EMP Shield in multiple locations so that you have protection closer together, able to drain the energy even faster than the damage can occur, if that makes sense.
That is so awesome.
It's pretty incredible. Yeah.
It really is.
Really is.
So for our audience, we do have the Grid Down Redoubt system, and it is amazing, but it's also a chunk of money. And if you cannot afford a system like that, you can still protect your home with an EMP Shield that is much more affordable for most of us. So that's what we did until we were able to get the Grid Down Redoubt system. Hey, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. You are a wealth of knowledge. What final advice or wisdom do you have for our audience regarding EMPs?
Yeah, so I think it's important for everybody watching this video to understand that an EMP could reset society back to the 1800s. But with the Grid Down Redoubt, you're not helpless. With Grid Down, your power stays on while others may be scrambling. Having a Grid Down Redoubt means having a life-saving preparedness tool. And it's a smart choice for people who truly understand the threat of an EMP. I just want to make sure people understand that.
And for our audience, we encourage you to go to griddown.com to learn more. If you use the promo code Provident, you will get a 7% discount, which is fabulous. We'll also leave a link for the EMP Shields. And if you use our promo code, you also get a discount. I think it's a $50. I mean, it's significant. So make sure that you go and check it out. And one of the things that I love about the EMP Shield website is there is a library in there. And if you click on that, there is so much information. You can learn all about EMPs and all kinds of documentation, more than you ever wanted to know. And so that is a super good resource. So I would encourage you to go check that out. And for any of you that have more questions about EMP, just drop those questions in the comments and we'll see what we can do to get them answered for you.
That's right. Stay powered up and prepared. And thanks for being part of the solution.